This first story is a tale from retail. So this happened a couple of weeks ago. Guy comes in with their son to trade in a PS4 system and their games with it to buy an Xbox One. It happens pretty often, so no biggie. We get the trade settled and now it's time for them to decide which system to go with. Now I can see the son, who this is all for, is starting to have doubts about if he really wants to go through with this, so I tell him the pros and the cons and tell him I've got some pre-owned systems in which he could have a 7-day satisfaction guarantee, so if he doesn't like it, he can come back and return/exchange, no hassle. But they decide to settle on a new system that comes with a game bundled with it. Alright, their choice. And they sign the paperwork saying that they are selling their items and giving us ownership of them, and they finish the purchase and leave. Nothing exciting yet. Then an hour later, while on my lunch break, my associate gets a call from Angry Dad, telling us how he hates the system and is bringing it back, and before we can explain the policy, he hangs up. So we brace for impact. He comes in, slams the system on a counter, wanting us to return it and give us his old system and games back. Something to know about our location: because of our city's laws, we're considered a pawn shop, and we have to follow pawn laws, which means any electronics traded in with a serial number has to be held for 10 days, and there is nothing we can do about it. They're pretty much in limbo. The only way it can be taken out of trade hold is for there to be a police report and a confiscation order. So I explained to Angry Dad the pawn laws, and also for the fact that the system had been opened, we couldn't return it. Go to any other big box retailer and they'll have the same policy. Angry Dad: I don't care about the law, just give me the system back. I don't want this. Call your manager. He must be able to do something about this. So I call my district manager and explain the situation. He tells me pretty much there's nothing that can be done, and if he doesn't accept that, leave and call the police. The next thing I know, when I get off the phone, he's dialing his phone. Angry Dad: I'm calling the police. This is robbery. Me. Fine. Saves me a step. My district manager to call them if you wouldn't leave. Now, what makes me laugh about this is that he called the emergency line over a video game system, and after speaking to the dispatcher, he tried to argue with them on the line, and the dispatcher told them to wait outside and to not speak to us. So the police came. After hearing both sides, very polite gentlemen they were, they gave Angry Dad his system that he left on the counter that we couldn't return and the number for corporate. And the only thing I heard from him is that the man left a 1-star review on Google about our store, and in the review is incoherent complaining about how the cops wouldn't do anything. So this Angry Dad decided within 1 hour that he really hated the Xbox that much. I mean, what can you even really do in an hour? I mean, he's gonna take a while to set it up and then put a disc in and download the game for the disc, because most of those games are not going to just play as they're putting it straight in. So if the reason he doesn't like it so much is because you have to download in order to play a game first, that's what a lot of modern consoles. So maybe it's just modern consoles in general, but he already had a PS4, so I'm not sure what he would be so upset about. Maybe what happened was he heard about the 7-day satisfaction guarantee policy for the used systems and thought that that would apply to a brand new system, and that's why he was so upset. But hopefully the Xbox that he got still works, because he slammed it on the counter before the police got there. Let me know what you guys would do if you were in this situation, and is he the jerk or not? Would I be the jerk if I told my brother that I know about his orientation? I am a 24-year-old straight male. My brother is 17 years old. We grew up in a deeply Catholic household, so our parents are very, traditional. It came to a point where I was watching Game of Thrones and there was a gay scene, and my dad asserted that we would never watch that show again. Fast forward to yesterday, my brother usually borrows my iPad for some schoolwork. He naturally used a messaging app to talk with his classmates, but he often forgets to log out. No biggie, I just log it out when it's my turn to use it. However, last night I saw a notification I didn't mean to read. It said, "Goodnight, babe," followed by a kiss and heart emojis. This was from a guy who we thought was just his best friend. Now, I know that he could be gay or bi or whatever, and I don't have any problems with that. I also respect his privacy, and I totally understand that I should not out him if he is not ready. However, with all the news about the mental health of teenagers lately, I'm afraid of what's keeping this to himself would do. Also, because of my parents' disposition about these things, I'm afraid that my brother won't ever have the courage or be comfortable enough to ever open up to us. I just want him to know that he has an ally in me and that I'll love him no matter what. We're close family, but we're not vocal about emotional things. I've never said I love you to anyone at home. We just know it. That's why no matter how subtle or casual I try to talk to him about this, it would surely be a big moment for us, and he might just feel really unsafe and or uncomfortable. So, would I be the jerk if I told him I know about his orientation? I think in this case, being upfront about what you know is probably the best thing. It wasn't like the OP went out of his way to invade his privacy from the sounds of it. It sounds like this just happened because he forgot to log out. But just saying that straight up is probably the best way to go. Saying that, hey, this happened, I know about this, and I support you. We can talk about it or not talk about it, whatever you want, but this is how I feel about it. even though our parents don't feel the same way at all. I think that saying that would say a lot, and also emphasizing the fact that it's his choice to tell whoever he wants to, and just because you found out in this certain type of way doesn't mean you're going to tell anyone, because it's not your choice. So, with all that, do you think he is the jerk or not if he tells his brother that he knows? And what would you do in this situation? Am I the jerk for not wanting a ring my fiance already gave another girl? My now fiance was engaged a couple years ago before we got together, and they broke up, and she gave the ring back. We've been together a few years, and a few days ago, he proposed, and I was super excited. The ring looked kind of familiar, and when I asked him where it was from, he said it was the ring he gave to his ex-fiance. I immediately took it off and was like, I don't want a ring that you bought for someone else. It wasn't meant for me. He got upset and said it didn't matter because it's not hers anymore, it's mine. My family and friends are split in saying that I'm the jerk, and I'm justified. I don't want him to spend a whole other $1,000 on a ring for me, but I still want a ring that was meant for me, not for someone else. Am I the jerk? This is a situation where that single symbolic ring probably holds a lot of connotations and representations of how he felt for another person. So I can understand why she's kind of freaked out that he's giving her a ring that all that thought went into for someone else. For her, it probably comes off as like the leftovers of his past. If you guys have ever seen the show 90 Day Fiancé, there was also a situation like this on that show, and that girl was not at all happy about this also. In that case, I think it was over 10 years that he was holding onto the ring until he gave it to her, so the way you saw it was the ring was in a totally different light. But in this case, it sounds like this relationship just ended relatively recently, and I was giving the ring to her. In this case, it sounds more important for her to have a ring that's all her own rather than having one that's fancier. So this ring that he's giving her from his ex might be a much more expensive, fancy ring, but it sounds like she's probably more happy with the very plain, simple ring that's hers and hers alone. But let me know what you guys think, jerk or not a jerk, and what would you do if someone gave you a ring that was meant for someone else originally? Am I the jerk for suggesting / letting my 17-year-old son get sloshed? I'm a 46-year-old male, and I live with my wife and my 17-year-old son. My wife has been on a different continent for about a month taking care of her dying mother, so it has just been me and my son for that time. My son and I have a very close relationship where he tells me almost everything going on in his life. On Saturday, he told me he was going to his very first ever high school party this upcoming weekend. He was a bit nervous since he had never really drank before, but he knew that he was going to on that occasion. Not sure if this is relevant, but this is in Canada where the drinking age is 19 years old in my province, and teenage drinking is very common. I asked my son if he wanted to have a few beers with me while we watched a sports game that night as a test run of sorts. My logic was if he goes into the party with zero awareness of his tolerance that it could end badly, and it would be best for him to find out his limit in the safety of his home with me. We had some beers over a few hours in the night, and I cut him off at 6. He has had beer in his past, but never more than one at a time. He was pretty sloshed, but he was okay and slept it off. We talked about it the next day. We agreed that 6 was too much for him, and now he knows to have fewer than 6 at the party. I was actually pretty content with this whole situation since he had his first experience drinking in a safe environment, and I feel much more comfortable with him going to a party now. However, in an effort to be transparent, I told my wife about it over the phone, and she was livid. She thinks it was reckless and irresponsible. Am I the jerk? On this one, people seem to be pretty split. There are certain people that think that it's just the dad teaching the son to binge. In other cases, there are certain comments where people said things like this. Yeah, I wish my parents had done this. The first time I did, I blacked out and threw up. It seems like the dad's intention was to keep the son safe by putting him in a safe environment so he can know what his limit was, and apparently they went over that limit. And I'm guessing the wife was probably more upset here that he didn't communicate this with her before doing it. Maybe even more so than actually having the son go through all this. But let me know what you guys think. Jerk or not a jerk, and what would you do if you were in this situation as the wife or the husband? Am I the jerk for telling this college guy's mom that her coming into his interview cost him the job? I'm a hiring manager at a tech company, and I was hiring for summer internships a little while ago. We had a guy about 19 years old applying for a summer internship between his freshman and sophomore years of college. It was a virtual interview over Zoom because of COVID. A minute or two in, when I was introducing myself, his mom came in and introduced herself and started talking about her son's work ethic. I thought it was a little strange. I said something polite about wanting to hear from him. She just didn't get the hint and kept coming into the camera frame during the interview and interrupting her son to answer questions for him. I asked a few technical questions, which she seemed to answer well, and then cut the interview fairly short. I thought that was all over and done with until I had gotten an email from a woman a month later asking about her son's application. She seemed offended he hadn't gotten an acceptance or a rejection. It bothered me. I feel bad for the kid, honestly. Way back when I was a teenager, my mom used to pull the same stuff, but luckily she only did that when I was 15 and working for a day camp, not when I was an adult applying for engineering jobs. But I felt like this poor kid was getting his chances ruined because his mom wasn't giving him the chance to apply on his own. I sent an email back saying I was not at liberty to send information about an applicant to anyone but the applicants. I also asked HR to send an email to the kids saying sorry, but we're not making him an offer. It is something we usually do, but his rejection email must have slipped through the cracks with all the COVID craziness. Anyway, we sent that. I got a call from his mom. She had a forwarded copy of the email and she was demanding answers. I said I could not comment on the guy's performance in the interview to her as she was not the applicant herself. If he wanted to reach out to me, I was happy to give him some feedback. However, I could say that regardless of his performance, her presence in the interview took him out of consideration for the position. We were looking for an independent and self-driven person for the position, and for that reason, it is important to see an applicant speak for themselves, follow up themselves, etc. I also said that as a piece of advice, every hiring manager I've ever met in my career who sees someone other than the applicant answering questions during an interview, following up on the applicant's behalf, etc., would also put their resume into the do not hire pile. Since while the applicant may be skilled and motivated, they need the ability to demonstrate those traits to themselves. She blew up at me over that, cussing me out to the point where I hung up. So, am I the jerk for how I handled this? Maybe I should have kept my mouth shut way earlier. This is something the mom needed to hear eventually anyway, and if it wasn't from him, it would be from somebody else down the line at some point. So it kind of seems like he's the one saving everyone's time, saving the 19-year-old guy's time, saving the mom's time, and saving his own time just by saying the straight up reason why, even if he was an amazing fit for the job, it didn't make sense to hire him. And hopefully, once she knows that, she'll stop interrupting his own interviews and let the 19-year-old guy speak for himself, so that way he can even have a chance to get a job. I mean, it really does sound like the guy may have gotten the job because he answered the technical questions in a proficient way from the sounds of it, but the mom came in and stepped on that before he even had a chance. So let me know what you guys think. Is he the jerk or not? And what would you do if you were him or the son in the situation? Am I the jerk for asking my husband to turn down his dream job for my career? I'm going to be very vague for privacy reasons. I'm a 33-year-old female, and I'm the breadwinner of her household. I have multiple, highly specialized degrees for a niche industry. I make $200K plus with the potential to get into the $600 to $1 million range. My company has not been hit badly by COVID, so most of us have kept our jobs, but we're still held to strict standards. My husband, a 36-year-old male, has a broad degree/work experience. He quit his job right before COVID hit, hoping for a better job in the meantime, and I was supportive. He spent a ton of time applying to various jobs and finally landed an interview at Organization X. This is his dream job in almost every imaginable way. I can't be detailed. However, it's paying about $65K a year, which would be fine, except this job directly puts my job stability at risk. My company and this organization are adversarial at best. My field is extremely secretive, and if clients discovered my spouse was working for a competitor, I would be permanently tainted. I wouldn't be able to get a job in the industry ever. I know this sounds like an exaggeration, but I promise you it is absolutely not. It would be like if I worked in protecting the privacy of celebrities and he worked for TMZ. If he tabbed my car, got into my work devices, he could use that to advance his career, and any trust I have in this field would be gone. Even if I trusted my husband not to do any of that, my clients and the company do not. Worse, because my background is so specialized, this is the only field I can work in. I asked him to drop from consideration for this job, since if he got it, we'd lose my income. $65K cannot support us in this city. Plus, he does not have to work for this organization. Even if the job market is awful right now, his background gives him access to a wide range of jobs. But I only have this one niche field. He was extremely angry and said I was selfish and only cared about money. I told him that if he wanted to go back to school for an advanced degree or just be unemployed for a while, I would support him, but taking this job isn't possible. He continued the process behind my back and got the offer. He wants to accept it because he says his career needs to take priority and I wasn't being supportive. I feel so betrayed, and I've contacted all relevant higher-ups in my company to inform them. I notified them as soon as he got the interview because it's better coming from my email than from my background check. I told him he could decline the offer, with me watching him physically decline it, or he could accept the offer and move out immediately. I would pay for him to stay 2 weeks at a hotel, and we would begin divorce proceedings. My company is willing to take care of all my legal fees. I feel awful. I still love him. I moved decisively because this was the best way to cut my losses, but it still hurts. He called me heartless and cold. It's true that I was prioritizing my career over his, but it felt like the only option at the time. Am I the jerk? The first strange thing in this whole situation is that she seemed like she was very clear about exactly what was okay and what was not okay, but yet the husband went behind her back to continue the process. So despite people thinking it's weird that she gave him two options at the end of all of this to either physically watch him decline or move out, it's probably because she doesn't trust him, because he did this gigantic elaborate thing behind the scenes of doing whatever he needed to do to have everything ready, to do the interview, to do all that stuff to get the job, all while hiding it from her. That's a very strange way to be, in contrast to her seemingly being so open and upfront about how she feels about him. So rather than him responding to her and saying, no, that's not okay, or communicating how he actually feels, seems like he just let her think that they were on the same page and decided to do it in secret, which seems like the worst way to go of any possibility. There are definitely a lot of people saying that the wife here only cares about money and that she chose her job over the husband, but it seems like she did give him a ton of options. If she's being honest about this whole offer to allow him to go back to school, to get another degree, or to be unemployed for a while, it's not like this guy has his back against the wall, but the counter argument to that is that this is supposedly his dream job. I'm not exactly sure why your dream job can be somewhere else that's not exactly in opposition to the wife's only job, but it's hard to say without knowing exactly what they're talking about here because of their privacy. Someone put this pretty well where they said that even though a lot of people are saying that the wife has decided her job is more important than her husband, on the flip side, the husband has decided his job offer is worth more than her entire career, because she's emphasized multiple times that if this happens, not only will she lose this current job, but she'll lose her entire career because she'll never be able to get back in again, because nobody will trust her because she didn't disclose who she was married to and what job they had. So on both sides, both of them are choosing a job, but one really is losing her entire career, that being the wife. But let me know what you guys think. Is she the jerk or not a jerk in this situation for essentially giving her husband the ultimatum to decline his dream job opportunity or divorcing him and having him move out?